Welcome to Bibliophiles Anonymous, episode 51. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jess.
And tonight we are going to be talking about the latest book club book over at the Malorian Tavern, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And I am really excited to talk about this one. This is probably one of my favorite books that I've discovered over the past couple years. And I was really looking forward to other people reading it because I didn't know anybody else who had read it, so I didn't have anybody to talk to about it.
Oh, I love it when that happens.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, my head's gonna explode.
I know. So that was one of the reasons why I picked this one for the book club back at the beginning of the year when we were trying to start it up again. And so I'm like, I don't care when we do it, but we have to read this book because I need to talk to somebody. So we'll be talking about that in just a little bit. But first, are there any other books you've been reading?
Once I finished Ready Player One, I started on City of Glass, which I've only read the first few pages because I think I fell asleep after I started it or something. I don't know. But other than that, no, it's been pretty much Ready Player One, which I've laid down in my bed to finish reading it because, you know, we were supposed to record last night and you had a mini crisis. And I fell asleep while reading Ready Player One, and I was like, oh my god, I'm not going to finish. But I did, and then we didn't record it tonight, so.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. It gave it some time to digest.
So, other than that, I'm probably going to try to finish The Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices now. Do we have anything else coming up that I have to read for the podcast?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I should know.
You make the schedule.
Okay, let me see. Let's see. This week we're talking about Ready Player One. Next week, next week is our banned books week. So yes. That'll be fun. And then the week after that, which will be October 6th. Well, that's when the episode will come out anyway, so we'll record a few days before then. We're doing Queen of Shadows by Diane Sylvan.
Oh yeah, I should probably dig that out of this box.
Yes, you should.
That's one that'll take me a little longer because I don't have it in digital. I have the actual Dead Tree version. Oh, yeah. So I can't take it to work with me. Well, I mean, I suppose I could. I don't think they would care for me taking a book to read on my break.
Yeah, why would that be a problem?
I don't think it would be. It's just more convenient to have them on my phone because then I don't have to keep up with a book.
Yeah, that's true. See, my thing is that pretty much wherever I go, I have some sort of large purse or bag or something that just kind of comes with the territory once you start having kids. That you need to have a big something to carry all of the crap that comes with kids. When they get older, it gets a little bit easier, but you still need to have a whole bunch of stuff. So there's always room for a book.
Yeah, see, I don't carry a purse at all, so it's a little more complicated.
I like purses, actually. They're fun.
I never got the purse thing. It's like, I don't have that much stuff. I have car keys, I have a phone, and then I have my wallet that I put in my pocket that has my license and debit card and everything in it. I'm like, I don't need a purse. This is all I need.
Well, no, you see, here's the thing. For me, like, there's a couple of things that I like to go shopping for. I mean, I'm not a big shopping person just because I really don't like trying on clothes. But there's some things that I really like shopping for because it doesn't matter. Like, you know, if I'm feeling like really ugly or fat or whatever, I can buy purses, I can buy scarves, I can buy shoes, and I never feel bad about any of those.
See, my thing is belts. I buy lots of belts.
Oh gosh, I don't even think I have a belt anymore.
I don't do the shoe thing. I have one pair, at any given time, I have one good pair of tennis shoes, and usually one old ratty pair that I wear if I have to do something out in the yard or wash my car or whatever. And usually a couple of dollar pairs of flip-flops from Walmart and a pair of fake Birkenstocks. That's the extent of my shoes.
Oh, I have a ton of shoes. I mean, not like expensive shoes or anything. I mean, most of mine come from, like, you know, Walmart or someplace where there's a really big sale or something, but...
Yeah. I take that back. I have 3 pairs of heels. I have a pair of brown boots, I have a pair of brown strappy sandal-y heels, and a pair of solid black heels. Because, you know, sometimes I do have to go to things like funerals.
And that's the only reason you have dressy shoes, in case you have to go to funerals.
That is the only reason I own heels at all. I am not exactly the most graceful person in the world, and walking in heels is not something that I would choose to do on a regular basis. And if I can get away with wearing flats, I will.
See, I love wearing heels. It's been, well, ever since I found out that this is as tall as I'm ever going to get.
Yeah, well, see, I don't really have that
No.
problem. I'm taller than average, so, I mean, I'm already taller than some guys that I know. If I'm wearing heels, then it's just like, I feel like a giant.
I will never know how that feels like. Okay, so tangent. You know, we've just been podcasting for a year and nothing has changed.
Hey, when you find a formula that works, you stick with it.
Okay, well, let's see. I just finished reading, well, I was reading Ready Player One, but then I also just finished reading If I Stay by Gail Forman. And it's been a really long time since I've done this, but I actually read the entire book in one sitting.
Yeah, see, Holly said she did when she read it.
To be honest, you kind of have to. It's that kind of book that you kind of know where she's going sort of with it, but you need to kind of see how she's going to get there and how it's going to be not resolved necessarily, because there's still some kind of open ends at the end of it. But yeah, it was one Saturday and I was tired and was not feeling the least bit energetic, so I just went up to my room and closed the door to try and discourage anybody from bothering me, and sometimes that works. And just settled down with the book. I'm like, I'll just start this and see kind of what it's all about. I mean, I knew a little bit about what it was about, but I'll just start it, and then maybe I'll go back downstairs after I rest up a little bit. Maybe I'll take a nap later. No, that didn't happen. I just stayed there the entire time. Now, it's not a very long book. I think it's only like 200 and something pages. But I didn't move for, a couple hours. However long it took me, I don't remember. But it was pretty good. And there's a sequel, sort of a sequel to it that I'm going to look for at the library this weekend. But it was good. I expected it to be a tearjerker, but it wasn't. Or at least not for me.
See, that's one reason why I've put off reading it, because I was told that it would kind of be, a tearjerker, and I don't really like that.
It's hard to say. I mean, there's some tough stuff that goes on. It's a very deep book, but I don't think I really got like really emotional about it. I mean, I could see how some people might do so, but if you're not someone who usually gets really emotional about books or stories, I mean, I think you said that you don't cry very much, or it takes a lot to make you cry. So you'd probably be okay. But it's
I have to be extremely emotionally invested in the characters before, like, when Dumbledore died.
Well, yeah.
That one kind of got me. Speaking of which, I've gotten a friend started reading Harry Potter. She was one of those that, she had heard about Harry Potter and she had seen a couple of the movies, but she had never read the books. And she's older. She's like my dad's age. Well, I took her the first 3 or 4 as soon as I finished reading them back in July when we were doing Harry Potter Palooza. She finally started reading them. She said she read the entire first book in one night and she was hooked. I'm like, I told you they were that good.
I love when that happens.
So now her nieces, she's got twin nieces, and they're really into science fiction and fantasy. They love Doctor Who. They read all the Twilight books. They read The Host by Stephanie Meyer, and they're reading the Mortal Instruments books now. Mm-hmm. They stole Paulette's Kindle because I put all the Mortal Instruments books on it for her, and they wanted to read them. But they've never read Harry Potter.
And how did they miss Harry Potter if they're into all this other stuff?
I don't know. They love the Hunger Games. I mean, they love the Hunger Games.
Not that the rest of it isn't good, but if you're already there, how did you miss Harry Potter? How is that possible?
I'm not sure. I mean, they're, 15. So, I mean...
Maybe just age-wise, they kind of...
Yeah, I think they just sort of missed out on all the hype. They were too young to really realize what was going on when the whole, oh my God, Harry Potter thing was going on.
Yeah, that could be.
So, But she says she's going to make them read them now. She says they have them. Their older sister bought them an entire set for Christmas one year. She's like, they have them. Now I'm going to make them read them. Because she's reading them. So, probably, I'm off Thursday and Friday this week. I may go down there Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
And I might go down there tomorrow night because I'm off Sunday. But we're actually going to watch the movies for the books that she's read now that she's read the books.
Oh, so she can have like a real good comparison now that she knows what the story's supposed to be.
Anyway, another tangent.
Yeah.
Back to
we're good at doing that. Let's see. So yeah, I read If I Stay, and then I'm rereading The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern.
Yeah, I saw you mention
just because I've fallen really far behind on some of the book reviews that I've been doing on my blog, so I wasn't going to do a review of Ready Player One because I already did maybe last year. So, I mean, that was going to kind of let me catch up. But then I just didn't want to pick up a whole bunch of new stuff. And I've been wanting to reread The Night Circus ever since I finished it before. I mean, I closed the book after I finished it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to read that again. And it was just because I didn't want to leave that world. I want to run away and join the circus, but I have no skills. But, it's really kind of nice, especially now. When I was reading it before, I just started, and this happens to me sometimes, and maybe I'm not the only one, but the first time when you read through something, I get really, not anxious, that's the wrong word, but I'm concerned about the characters, especially the ones that I get attached to, because I don't want anything to happen to them. And so, that one is all about the contest, and so I'm like, oh gosh, what's going to happen with Celia and Marco, and they love each other, and what's going to happen, but now that I know how everything ended up, now I'm going back, and I can enjoy part of it more because I'm not, worried about what's going to happen to them. It's like, okay, I know what's going to happen, and they're, well, not entirely fine, but mostly fine. So now I can immerse myself more into some of the other aspects of it. And I still think that Bailey is my favorite character. I just think that he is adorable, and I want to adopt him.
And see, I think that is behind that whole, spoilers don't really ruin books for you thing, is because if you know what's going to happen, then you're not worried about it.
Well, yeah, that's true, but there have been so many books that I have read, and in fact, when over at the tavern, when Marita was talking about, she just finished Feed by Mira Grant, and that she was just like, the ending was like, oh my god, she couldn't believe what happened at the end. And I'd said, just to warn you, the other ones kind of do the same thing to you. The end of book 2 just like nearly made me pass out. And she's like, oh, don't tell me. And I understand that because there is an experience that you get from that. Because, gosh, when I finished Feed, and I mean, I literally had a hard time breathing for a second. And I was at work, which was the best part. It was on my lunch break at work. So I'm sitting at my desk in my office with the door closed. And I'm looking at the clock, making sure that I'm not going to be late, clocking back in. But I'm like, I have like 10 pages left. Okay, I can make it. And I finish it with like barely a minute to spare, and then I have to clock back in and try and think about numbers and spreadsheets for the rest of the afternoon. And I'm just sitting there, and I can barely think straight because I'm just like, what just happened? That can't happen. That's not right. What? I have to like, process things and like, function now, and I can't. So there is something about that experience. I think if I had known what was going to happen at the end of the book, it would have kind of spoiled that for me a little bit, and it wouldn't have been as exciting, devastating, traumatic. I don't know, but I could see it both ways.
I think a lot of it, too, depends on the type of book and the type of spoiler you're talking about.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, The Night Circus is one I definitely want to reread at some point.
It's so good. Oh my gosh.
It really is. And it's totally not the kind of thing I normally read, but it was definitely very, 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 very entertaining.
Oh yeah. But okay, tangent number 3 for the beginning of this episode. All right. Let's talk about Ready Player One, shall we?
Let's do before we go off on any more
We're gonna be here all night. Okay. So, like I said, this was a reread for me because I had read it before, but this was your first time reading it, so your first impressions, what did you think?
I want to live in the Oasis.
See, I figured that you would appreciate this book, especially since you love video games.
Yes.
Because there is a humongous video game aspect to this book.
Well,
And not that you have to be a gamer to appreciate some of it. I mean, you don't, because everything's
no.
explained so well, but
But you need a passing acquaintance with the 80s.
yeah.
And a passing familiarity with video games helps to enjoy this book. I mean, I was born in the 80s, so I kind of missed out on the 80s.
Right.
But there are parts of that 80s culture that sort of pervade even till now. And there were things mentioned in there that I knew about, that I have had experiences with. I mean, the whole John Hughes movies.
Right.
I've never seen 16 Candles, but I have seen The Breakfast Club numerous times because it's one of my favorite movies ever.
That's great.
And, there was something in there about Kevin Smith, and Kevin Smith is one of my favorite people on the planet. Come on, he gave us Jay and Silent Bob. And, like I said, I got a lot of the references, and a lot of the music is stuff that, while I may not actually actively listen to it a lot, I'm a Lynam fan, and they play a lot of that stuff at their shows.
Uh-huh.
So I have a familiarity with the music that was mentioned, and again, too, like you said, I love video games. I'm a huge gamer. Video games are something that I have loved since I was 5 years old and was given my first Nintendo. Actually, I remember having an Atari, but yeah, when I was 5, we bought a Nintendo, and I just sort of never looked back. Video games were just my thing. So the idea that they have created this immersive online reality that started out as kind of a massively multiplayer online game that sort of became more than that. You could buy your own planet and build things the way you wanted them, and there was this whole online economy and everything. You could live in the Oasis.
Pretty much, yeah. So let's back up and kind of set the scene a little bit. This is a very dystopian novel, definitely, set in the distant future, but not hugely distant. I think it's the 2040s.
Yeah, I think it was 2044.
Yeah. So I think one of the things for me that really started off selling it to me was because it's a future that seems pretty plausible.
Yeah, it really
which is scary. And basically there's all the things you usually have in a dystopian novel. You have like major climate change, you have an energy crisis, there's been the fallout from nuclear war, and basically everybody kind of congregated to the major cities because you couldn't afford to live in the countryside or in suburbs because it was too difficult to travel because you could barely even find gasoline to power a car, much less afford to keep it maintained or anything else. So we meet our main character. His name is Wade, and he's a senior in high school. And he's the first person narrator. He's explaining everything that's going on. And you find out that this is the way things are now. And they have this thing called the Oasis, which, like you said, it started out as a kind of that thing that they they tried to have called virtual reality, where you had to wear like these goggles that you could see, and it looked like you were surrounded by whatever video game you were playing. Well, they kind of have that, and they have gloves that you can interact with things in the game, but it's become bigger than that. It's not just a game. Like, for example, Wade attends school inside the Oasis.
Which I think is
Yeah.
awesome.
And it actually, because like I said, it's hard for people to travel, and it's hard for, I mean, there's just a ton of poverty. It's pretty much, there's only a few corporations that have pretty much all of the money in the world, and then the rest of the people just kind of scavenge. And I knew I was going to really like this book, not just because of the video game aspect of it, which I did like, but the very first time that Wade described where he lived, number one, I was horrified. And then number two, I was like, that is just like the most amazing thing ever. I don't know why. I just, for some reason, the idea of the stacks is both like a wonderful idea and it's absolutely terrifying to me. I don't know why. But
Yeah.
basically, he lives outside of Oklahoma City. And what the stacks are is it used to be a trailer park, but since they needed to have so many people in one place, they just started taking trailers or RVs or what have you. And I think some of them were even just like metal shipping containers, and just stacking them one on top of the other and kind of rigging like a makeshift scaffolding around them. And they could be 20, 25 levels high. And that's bizarre. And I mean, he was saying, collapses are not uncommon. I mean, you could be in the middle of this thing and somebody does something stupid up at the top, the whole thing falls over. And the thing is,
You could be at the top and somebody in the middle does something stupid and the whole
yeah.
thing falls
And
over.
and okay, now this is how you know that I was an English major. Is because I was reading this and I was like, oh my God, it's a metaphor for their lives. Everything is just so precarious and the slightest thing can. And then, my mind went off on this whole big metaphor and I'm like, okay, and I need to stop because that's just starting to get really cheesy and stupid. But I'm like, but it is! But anyway, Wade lives with his aunt, and this was another thing that just like completely got me because he's talking about that he lives with his parents have died. So he lives with his aunt and whichever boyfriend she has at the time, and they live in a double wide at the top of one of these stacks with like 20 other people. Like there's a family that's in the master bedroom, and then there's a family that's in like the living room, and then his aunt and her boyfriend have the other room, and if he sleeps there, he sleeps usually in the laundry room because it's warmer and there's, plenty of room and a decent internet connection. And I'm like, that's a
Yeah.
lot of people to cram into a double wide. But the thing that's so funny is like, yeah, but it's a double wide. We have plenty of room for all of these people. And I'm just like, okay, I've been in a double wide, and there's not that much room. But he's just like, yeah, this is the way it is, and we're fine. But his aunt is not the nicest person. She pretty much,
He is a piece of
yeah,
work.
and I think she's, well, a lot of people are on some sort of drug because it's just easier to be high than to live in their existence. But so that's part of the problem. Then part of it, I think she just resents Wade even being there, and you know, whatever. It's still your nephew. But he
Yeah.
spends most of his time in his hideout, which is in the back of this, over on the, I guess on the side of the stack, sort of. They had to drag like a whole bunch of cars because people were just, they would drive as close to the city as they could, and then once the fuel ran out, they just abandoned their car because they couldn't get any further. So they would just stop and leave the car and I guess walk to wherever they were going back when everything started falling apart. So they had to drag all these cars and kind of just pile them up together. So it was this big pile of crushed up cars. And he found a big van in the middle of the pile that was still mostly intact, and there was still the key. So he was able to
Yeah.
kind of construct this little cubby hole inside this massive pile of crushed up cars because the way it was piled up, it wasn't going to crush down. And so that's where he went to kind of escape from everything. And of course, then he could access the Oasis and go to school and do all of that. So that's the world that we're in. And the main thing that you need to know right at the beginning is that the owner and inventor of the Oasis, his name is James Halliday, and he has recently passed away. He was a bit of a recluse, kind of a weird duck, and because he created this thing that now everybody depends on. Of course, he is fabulously wealthy.
Of course.
Obviously, that's just a given. And but since he has...
When you create the greatest thing in the history of ever, you're going to be,
fabulously wealthy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. But on the date of his death, he releases this video out into the world, which basically outlines the fact that he has set up a contest because he has no family. He never married. He never had any children. He doesn't really have any friends anymore. So he is leaving his vast wealth and a, controlling share of the oasis to whoever completes the contest. And he has hidden inside the oasis. Now keep in mind, the oasis is huge. It's almost limitless. The number of worlds and planets and everything, you can create pretty much whatever you want. And he has hidden somewhere in the oasis what he calls an Easter egg.
And anybody who plays a lot of video games is familiar with this concept.
Yeah. And anybody who hasn't, we'll basically talk about what an Easter egg is. It's something that is hidden within a game. Or sometimes they do it with movies or with DVDs. There'll be like a little extra something, and it may not be, it may not actually, if it's on a DVD, it may not be in the menu, but if you kind of go at the end of another part or something, it's something that's hidden, and it's something special, maybe like a bonus scene, or in a video game it could be, oh gosh, it could be anything really, but the whole concept of it's something that's hidden. It might be kind of an in-joke that the creator of the game or the director of the DVD movie threw in for the fans. It's something like that. But in the video, Halliday talks about the very first Easter egg, and that it was in this old video game called Adventure, where you had to go through and fight dragons in this castle. And back then, they didn't give credit to the developers. So, like now, gosh, if you play video games, I mean, there's credits at the end that have hundreds of names on it, but back then they didn't give any kind of credit to the people who made it. So the guy who programmed the game made this like special little room that if your character found this little hidden room, there was it was supposed to look like I don't know, it was very pixelated back then, so it was just a little dot. But if you go over to the little dot and you kind of tried to pick it up, on the screen it would appear this game was created by whatever the guy's name was, I don't remember. But he was like, that was the very first Easter egg, and the first time that he, James Halliday, found it, he's like, that was just one of the coolest things ever, because I felt like it was this secret thing that was hidden just for me. So that's what I'm going to do, and whoever finds my Easter egg within the Oasis will become the sole heir to my fortune, and basically becomes owner of the Oasis itself, which is a pretty nice prize.
Oh, yeah.
And so the way that it's structured is that there are 3 keys that open 3 gates. You have to find the key, and then you have to find the gate, and you have to complete the challenge that's inside. And the entire world becomes obsessed with this contest, as you could probably imagine. And
as, realistic.
Yeah, it's like every time that the Powerball gets like really, really, really high, how many lottery tickets did they buy? Everybody like rushes to get them. Well, this is even more massive than that, and it's getting a lot of media coverage because everybody's talking about it. And the people who are really serious about it, they call themselves egg hunters, and then it just gets shortened to gunters. And Wade he wants to be an elite gunter, but he can't because he doesn't have any money. And so one of the ways that the Oasis makes money is because you have to pay to travel between the worlds, and he doesn't have anything. They are beyond poor. So he's kind of been stuck just on the school world, which there's nothing to do except go to school. And he's really frustrated because he knows that a lot of what the clues are going to be to find the eggs or to find the keys that open the gates all have to do with 80s pop culture. And he's pretty much made himself an expert of 80s pop culture.
Yeah.
He knows the movies, he knows the TV shows, he knows the music, he knows the video games.
Which seems odd to me because the 80s really weren't that great.
Well,
I mean, I came out of the 80s, so there was something good that came out of them.
There you
but
go.
All in all, they really weren't that. I mean, okay, I have friends, and some of these friends are band guys who just love 80s music. I'm not a big fan.
Well, the main reason that Halliday was so enthralled with it was because it was the decade that he was a teenager.
True, and I suppose I can understand that, though for me that would be the 90s, the late 90s and early 2000s.
Right. And also, you're more well-adjusted than I have a feeling that Halliday was.
I wouldn't place any more fit.
You give the impression that you're more well-adjusted than Halliday was.
Maybe.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's basically setting the scene. And this is the world where we live. You have Wade, who wants desperately to find the egg just like everybody else in the world does, but has pretty much no resources to do it.
Well, there's a few interesting characters because, once he makes his first login and goes to school, you meet H,
Mm-hmm.
and you hear Wade talking about this blogger named Artemis, and he kind of has a cyber crush on her.
Kinda.
Okay, he's totally bonkers for her.
Pretty much.
But I like H. They're, he actually says once that H is his only friend.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, things are kind of slow. I mean, they talk about all of the Gunters searching for these keys for, all these years, and nobody's managed to find it. And, of course, what kind of story would we have if it weren't for the fact that Wade is the first person to find the first key?
Well, of course. I mean, he says that right at the beginning. He's like, a lot of people have told this story wrong, so this is what really happened.
And he finds it because he figures out that it's on the planet where the schools are.
Right. And it's funny, too, because, like I said, he's really smart, and he has learned and just immersed himself in all of this 80s trivia. And the first key you have to find is the copper key. You have to find them in order. And there was a kind of a riddle that was given to start leading you to give you an idea of where the copper key could be. And of course, people have been poring over every interpretation they could possibly think for years. Well, buried inside what they call the almanac, which was kind of this big collection of works of things that Halliday had said, done, meant everything that you could possibly know about this guy pretty much was inside the almanac. And Wade finds kind of a secret message inside the almanac, which he figures he probably wasn't the only one, but that most people kind of kept that to themselves because they didn't want somebody else finding out this information. But
right.
Through all of this, it's actually a clue from Dungeons and Dragons that,
which I think
is it the Tomb of Horrors, I think it is?
Yeah, something like that.
And so he knows that he has to find this Tomb of Horrors, but he doesn't know where it could be. And through a couple of other clues, he does find out that it is at Ludus, which is the school planet. Which it's kind of neat because Ludus, they have like schools, just tons of them, and they're all identical campuses that are surrounded by identical grounds pretty much. But he did find that there is one place there that was different, and it had the Tomb of Horrors on it. So he manages to get there, and
by sort of scamming the system, which I thought was funny.
Well, he's good at doing that, really, because he has, like he said, he has this problem with trying to pay for this teleportation to get around the oasis, so he can't leave the planet very much. But he's like, well, I don't have to leave it. I just have to get, pretty far on the other side of it. So he's trying to figure out what to do because he could run there, but it would take a really long time to do that, and he wants to check this out right now. So he finds out that another school that is not right next to it, but a lot closer, is they're having a sporting event. Is it a football game or I can't remember.
It was
Yeah,
something.
it's a sports game. And if you go to the front office of your school and you say, "Oh, well, I want to attend the football game over at, PS 132," they'll give you a free voucher to use the teleportation system to go to the other school. It's because you're planning on going to support the team. And so,
Spirit,
yeah,
yay! Good team.
so that's what he does. He goes in there and says, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the football game that's over there." And so he gets a free trip to go over there, but then he doesn't go. Obviously, he goes to check out this tomb. And so he's read through the little booklet or manual or whatever for this particular Dungeons and Dragons module. So he's going through and he kind of can anticipate what's going to happen because he has to go in there and there's different monsters and there's different traps. He works his way through it and finally he gets to the main, center room, I guess.
Yeah.
And inside there is, well, he knew it was coming. It was going to be the big monster, and I don't remember what it was called now.
Asarak?
Something like that. And so he was like, I know this thing could, kill me in an instant, so I'm kind of in trouble here, because I'm still really low level, even though going through the Tomb of Horrors has kind of leveled me up a little bit, and I found some new armor, which is awesome, but I'm still in trouble if he just, decides to turn around and attack me. So he goes in there because, what else can he do? He's come this far. And instead of trying to attack him or anything, the, demon guy challenges him to a game of joust.
I remember this game. I've played that game. It's a very interesting game.
And basically, I mean, this, big stand-up video game console comes out of the ground and he has to stand side by side with this, creature and play joust, which that's just a funny visual.
It really is.
And so you have to beat him 2 out of 3 and he loses the first time, but then is able to win the last 2. And that's how he earns the copper key. And he's just sitting there going, oh my gosh, what just happened? This is insane. So now he looks and he has the copper key in his inventory. And he's getting ready to leave when all of a sudden, who walks in? But the girl that he's been crushing on forever.
Artemis.
Yeah. And turns out she found the tomb a while ago, but she's not very good at joust. So she keeps coming back there, and actually she keeps coming back and she'll come right before midnight because the thing resets for a new person at midnight. So if she comes in right before, then she gets 2 shots at it each time. So she's trying to get, Wade lies to her because he's like, I don't really want her to know what happened here because I don't know what's going to happen if she tries to attack me because she's a more powerful player than I am. I don't know if she can take it. I don't know what, nobody's ever found one of these things, and it's been years since the contest started, so nobody really knows all of the ins and outs and all of the rules. So,
you can't blame.
Yeah, he's very cautious, and rightfully so. So, he's kind of trying to gracefully leave, and she was like, well, why don't you stay, and then you can have another shot at him after midnight. And he's kind of like, no, that's okay, I'm gonna leave now. And all of a sudden, there's some sort of notification because there's a scoreboard up at Halliday's old website, basically. And all of a sudden, there's somebody on the scoreboard. There hasn't been anybody on there for 5 years. And now Wade's on there, although his avatar's name is Parzival. And Artemis is like, what the heck, dude? You were able to beat him? She was highly offended. And Wade leaves and kind of gives her a tiny little bit of advice, saying, because he asked the demon guy to switch sides with him because he's like, I'm used to playing on the left side of the console. So he did that and it was easier. So he's like, try playing him on the left side. There might be a trick there. I don't know. And she's like, well, okay, whatever. But it works because she gets a key too. But as soon as he steps out of the tomb, all of a sudden he realizes that he has like a ton of voicemails and emails, and H is going crazy. He's like, what? You need to answer your phone? What the heck is going on?
Yeah, he's having a meltdown.
Yeah. Well, who can blame him, really?
True.
I mean, Wade's entire life changes overnight because now all of a sudden he's famous. Because, I mean, the media coverage had kind of waned on the contest because it had been so long and nobody had found anything. I mean, there was this big fervor when it first started. But then nothing really happened, and some people were starting to think, well, maybe it was just a hoax. Halliday was a weird guy. Maybe he set all this stuff up and there's not anything really there. But then all of a sudden something happened, and it just flipped out. And they're like, well, maybe this is really a thing now. And H kind of was funny about it because he didn't want any hints, because both of them had agreed they're both solos, because some of the Gunters had kind of formed clans and searched together, but there were a lot of people who were just strictly independent and didn't want any help from other people, and both H and Wade were kind of like that. Artemis is too.
Right.
So, even if they found like a clue or something like that, they didn't share information very much, although Wade kind of sneaks a little bit of a clue, sort of, to him. But then we finally get to meet the bad guys.
Let me just tell you, they are some real bad words that I probably shouldn't say.
Yeah, we try to keep this family friendly mostly. Yeah, the bad people is a corporation that basically is the world's largest internet service provider. And I don't remember the full name of it, but the initials are IOI.
They want to own Oasis.
Well, yes, they want control. They want the money, and they want control over the Oasis, and basically what they want to do. The special thing about the Oasis is that it's free. You pay a one-time fee of $0.25 when you first sign on to it, which most people do when they're very young, because, like I said, school is held in the Oasis now because it's just easier to do that there. And
right.
So that's the only thing that you pay. And Wade, the only reason that Wade is able to know as much as he knows is because just imagine having every single book, every single movie, every single television show, every single video game there and available to you in basically this big, huge, free library of stuff. That's what the Oasis is, and much more besides. But the thing is, everything is accessible, and it doesn't matter if you are well-to-do or if you're like Wade, who has next to nothing. Who
has to scavenge for his computer.
Yeah. He finds like spare bit parts and puts it together and happens to be able to make the laptop work. And then, of course, his aunt and her boyfriend take it to sell, so he's very resourceful, but at the same time he doesn't have anything. So that was kind of an equalizer with the contest, because even though Wade was low level and he couldn't get around the Oasis very much, there was still the fact that all of the information to solve it was there and everybody could access it. But IOI wants to take everything and monetize it and start charging more fees and I guess, advertise things everywhere. And, it's basically the antithesis of what the Oasis was meant to be.
Right. And most of the Gunters are violently opposed to IOI taking over.
As would I.
Yeah. That would be like somebody telling me that they're going to take Lord of the Rings, which is basically free.
Right.
And you're going to have to pay a monthly fee if you want to play this game. Which actually, Lord of the Rings Online used to be a pay-to-play. You had to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went to what they call freemium. You can play without paying, but you can also buy stuff that helps.
Right.
Which is sort of how the Oasis works. It's free, you can play, and there's a lot of stuff you can do without spending any money, but you can also spend money for teleportation and clothing and, equipment.
Right.
Which is, anybody who is familiar with free-to-play MMOs, that's kind of the model that they operate.
Right. And the employees of IOI, they have a whole division in their company that is dedicated to hunting down the Easter egg. And all of their avatars inside the Oasis, they don't have names. They're all these numbers, and all of the numbers start with the number 6. So they've all been given the nickname the Sixers.
Right.
And there's some groups of Gunter clans that just pretty much do nothing but hunt Sixers and try and take out their avatars so that they'll have to start over. I mean, they basically have an army. Well, one of the heads of the Sixers, his name is Sorrento, and he has sent a message to Wade. Now, by this point, Artemis has gotten a key, and so has H. And then later, there's 2 other guys, both from Japan, who do it as well. We don't meet them until later. But Sorrento sends Wade, basically he wants to set up a meeting, wants to talk to him, and Wade's kind of like, oh, they're just going to try and, talk me into try to buy the key from me or buy information, so maybe I shouldn't do it. But I'm just curious to see what happens, what they're going to say. So he agrees to do the meeting and finds out that they do want to, purchase information, but they also know exactly who he is and exactly where he lives, because there is some anonymity inside the Oasis, kind of the same way there is on the internet. I mean, you can go in there just on the internet now and set up a profile for yourself and not use your real name and do whatever you want. But these people, they know his name, they know where he lives, and they threaten him, saying, tell us what we want to know, or we're going to blow up your house.
Yeah, which is very pleasant.
And Wade's kind of like, you can't do that, and Sorrento's like, oh yeah, we can, and we will. And basically where you live, it's gonna, nobody's really gonna care, and they're probably gonna just assume that it's, a meth lab exploding. So nobody's gonna investigate it. There's no way for you to record this conversation. You'll have no proof that this ever happened. And Wade's in his hideout right now, so he's not even at home, but they think that he is because they didn't see him leave. And
right.
So he says, well, I think you're bluffing, and he disconnects from the meeting, and the next thing you know, there's a huge explosion, and his aunt and her boyfriend and everybody who lived in their trailer, and pretty much everybody who's in that stack, because the stack collapses, they're all gone. And that's when you know that things have just gotten real.
Yeah, that they mean business.
Because it goes from being like a huge game inside like the, best video game ever to being deadly serious. There is a lot of money and power on the line, and you know that there are people out there now who are willing to kill for it. So the first thing...
Yeah, and not just kill avatars, kill real people.
So it's not just, hunting down people inside a video game or inside like an MMO, like a World of Warcraft or Lord of the Rings Online or however many other ones there are out there. There's a bunch of them now. But this is seeking out people in the real world and killing them and not caring if innocent bystanders are affected at all. So the first thing that Wade does is he contacts H and sets up a meeting. And H has this kind of private room that he calls the basement, and they invite Artemis and the 2 Japanese players. Is it Shoto and Daito? Yeah, I couldn't remember. And then they're 2 brothers that kind of work together. And so Wade brings them in basically to warn everybody and say, look, this is the way that it's going, and you guys need to make sure that you're safe. And because they came after me, and they could very easily come after all of you too.
Could and
yeah,
will.
Pretty much. So after that, Wade packs up, and that's when he moves to Columbus, right?
Yeah.
Because he has nowhere else to go.
Right, and now since, he signed some endorsement deals, and between those and what money he got for finding the copper key, he has enough money to get him a small apartment.
Yeah, and because he's basically a celebrity now.
But nobody knows at this point who he really is, except for,
Parzival.
And the Sixers, they know who he really is.
Yeah.
They know him as Wade. Well, after the explosion, he manages to change his identity to somebody. He hacks into the system and moves his retina patterns and everything over to a completely new identity.
Yeah, because you can buy anything on the internet, really, and he's able to crack into basically the U.S. citizenry database and create a new person. Yeah, he copies his retina scans, he copies his fingerprints, because a lot of stuff is done that way now.
Right.
And so he...
Which is actually believable for 2044, because, we have retina scanners now.
Yeah, and they are moving a lot of things to using fingerprints. They have the fingerprint scanners you can have on your cell phone.
Yeah, the new iPhones have it. My last laptop that I bought 7-8 years ago had a fingerprint scanner on it.
So yeah, none of this stuff so far is, that far out there. This is all still stuff that could really happen. So he gets an apartment. The reason he goes to Columbus is that's where the headquarters for the Oasis are. So it kind of has become a mecca for the Gunters in a way. But he gets a small apartment and fits it up with the best security possible, and gets the best Oasis equipment that he can get, and pledges that he is not going to leave that apartment until the contest is over one way or another.
Which he almost succeeds in doing.
Oh, we didn't talk about the gate. We skipped the gate. We got the key and then we didn't do the gate. So yeah.
After you find the key, you have to find the gate that the key unlocks.
Right.
The key has another clue on it, and it's kind of cool. You go and you find the gate, and you face the challenge of the gate. And let me just say, somebody needs to create I forgot what they called it in the book. It's not really a game, but an experience like he had to go through in the first game.
Right. Well,
I want to do that.
He figures out that what he needs to do is, there is a world in the Oasis that was made to look just like Halliday's childhood neighborhood. And so they're replicas of Halliday's house that he lived in when he was a kid. So the gate is located inside one of these replicas. Now, people have been looking at these replicas for a long time because they figured, oh, well, there's got to be clues there. But I guess you have to have the key in order for it to work, so they never found anything. And so he went in there, and basically when the gate opens, you ended up being inside a movie.
Yeah, War Games.
But basically it was, instead of Matthew Broderick, it's you. And you have to go through the entire movie being the main character of the movie. So you have to recite dialogue. You have to do all of the actions that the character in the movie does. And yeah, I think they called it flick syncs.
Yeah, that's it. Flick syncs.
Yeah. And I agree. That would just, especially for some movies, that would be so much fun.
If you could, if they could find a way to do where you could choose a movie and then do that, oh yes. There would be lots of movies that I would be like, I want to do this one and this one and this one.
Yeah. And so he had to act his way through the whole movie. And then once he did that, then that cleared the gate and gave him the clue towards finding the next key, which is the jade key.
Right. And it takes him a while to figure out that clue.
Right.
But once he clears the gate, he realized it's him, Artemis, and H are the first three, right?
Yes. And then...
And potato, and they're called the High Five.
Yes.
Which I thought was kind of clever and kind of cheesy.
Well, okay, it's the media that gives them that nickname, so of course it's going to be kind of cheesy.
True. But Wade is in first place for a long time.
Well, yeah, because nobody can figure out. They eventually see what happened was once they figured out where the Sixers got wind of where the first key was found, they kind of barricaded the Tomb of Horrors so that they could get as many of their own people through as possible. So you have the High Five, and then you have nothing but Sixers pretty much. But as word spread, more and more people started coming there, and there was kind of a battle between the other Gunters and the Sixers, trying to get control of it again. But yeah, the scoreboard stays the same for a while, and nobody can figure out where the next key is.
And is this the one where he thinks he figured it out and he found the Pac-Man game?
I think so. Yes, because part of the clue, it says something about you need to where you need to go someplace and you have to collect trophies. So there's a museum, like a video game museum on one of these worlds, and that's where he ends up going. And in the bottom of this, there are several trophies in there, and so he's trying to see if that's part of the clue, and that's not it at all. He was completely off base. But he finds this pizza restaurant that Halliday had mentioned going to over and over, and he's like, I don't remember that being here before, so I'm going to go in there and check it out. And there's this old Pac-Man game, and he figures out that there's a quarter sitting on top of it, and it's frozen. You can't take it.
Yeah, it's stuck.
And so he figures out, and I don't remember exactly how, but that the way to beat this challenge was to play a perfect game of Pac-Man, which there's been a ridiculously small number of people who have actually been able to do that.
Yeah, I can barely make it past like 3 levels, so I don't even want to think about it.
I don't think that I would survive playing Pac-Man for that long.
No.
I think eventually I would start hearing it in my sleep.
Yes, but see, the thing was he had to play a perfect game without stopping.
Yeah.
Except for 15-minute intervals where you could hide Pac-Man and he could go take a bathroom break.
But
there's no way I could do that.
No. I'm just not that dedicated.
No. I would suck at being a gunner.
Yeah, I would too. But anyway, he finally is able to do it. And all of a sudden he's able to take the quarter. And he has no idea what this quarter does and why it's there. Obviously it was not part of the gate. So he pockets it and puts it in his inventory and takes off.
And then he finds out he can't take it out of his inventory.
Yeah, it's frozen there. Now it's stuck on him basically instead of stuck on the video game. But he kind of forgets about it. And so do we until the end when it actually became quite important.
Yes.
But
yeah, he figures out. I think Artemis is the first one that
Artemis finds the jade key first. But the problem is that when the Sixers used that thing to help track people?
Yes. They've picked up an artifact which, when activated, will locate a person, any person, anywhere in the Oasis. But it won't. It depends on how far you are away from them, how accurate it is. Like if you're on a different planet, it'll tell you what planet they're on. If you're in a different sector, it'll tell you what sector they're in. But if you're in the same sector, it will pinpoint them for you.
Right. So, you knew, because everybody knew that the Sixers had this, so you knew that they were going to use it as soon as somebody found the jade key, because that would tell them, if not the exact location, at least it would narrow it down by a lot.
Right.
So I have to say, I really, really loved the way that the jade key was set up, because the whole riddle that was with it was talking about needing a whistle from a captain, but the whistle could not be blown until all of the trophies had been collected, and there was a dwelling long neglected. That was the rhyme there.
Yeah.
And so he was trying to think, and he eventually figured out that the captain is actually Captain Crunch, the cereal. And one of the prizes that used to be in there was a whistle. So that's the whistle, but he couldn't figure out where this dwelling long neglected was. And I love the fact that it was from the old text-based video game Zork.
Me too, because I spent so many hours playing
that game. Oh my
game.
Gosh, seriously, I did too, and it drove me crazy. It was so funny. As soon as they said that, I was just grinning from ear to ear. It's like, all right, let's go.
I actually, believe it or not, and I bet it's on top of my desk somewhere right at this moment, I still have a 3.5 floppy, which there hasn't been a computer that actually has a 3.5 floppy drive in it in God knows how long. Right. But I still have a 3.5 floppy disk that has Adventure and all 3 Zorks and a couple of other text adventure games. I
miss Zork.
Yeah, it's one of those that every now and then I have to look it up online and find it in an emulator and download it and attempt playing it again.
Yeah, I mean there's places online where you can just play it, and it works. I mean, basically all it is just a black screen with white type, and it describes like where you are, and then you have to type in where to go. And part of the thing is you would go in this old abandoned house, and there's a trap door, and you go down into the magic world, and there's trophies or these special items that you have to collect, and you have to bring them back up to the house and put them all in the trophy case, and you have to collect all of them in order to win the game and put them all in the trophy case. Well, I've actually never beaten Zork, to be honest.
I didn't until I got a lot older and discovered these amazing things called walkthroughs.
Yeah. Yeah, see, mine was after I finally found, calling it a map is generous, but it kind of told you how to get around and find things better than, just kind of stumbling around.
Right.
But
yeah, I found a walkthrough, and I think I finally, beat it. I'm pretty sure I beat Adventure, too.
I'm pretty sure I beat Adventure. That was a really long time ago.
And the bad part about this is I still play one of those old games like that fairly regularly.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And that's angry.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
It's not actually text, it's ASCII, but still, it's characters on a screen, and you don't really have graphics unless you have a tile set and make them have graphics, which I usually do. But those old games, they're so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they were popular.
And Aim Band is so small that you can run it off a flash drive.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Wade goes down and he gathers all of the trophies and puts them in the trophy case, and looks around. There's a cabinet and there's a box of Captain Crunch, and he gets in there and there's a whistle, and he blows the whistle and it turns into the jade key.
Yep.
And then he has to find the gate.
Jade.
Huh?
Which it actually isn't jade when he finds it. It's wrapped in silver foil.
Right.
So then this is the one where it takes him a while to find the gate, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
This is where things sort of start getting really moving along, and I sort of, everything starts running together.
Right. Was this the one that was the song?
Yeah, he finds the song. Well, no, after, I think is it right before it's right before he finds the gate. He finds the guitar and starts playing the Rush song, and he gets the extra bonus clue that helps him, actually win the game. Because he's betting that the Sixers if they did find the guitar, they didn't try to play it.
Well, no, because you needed to find the guitar because you had to put it on the...
That's true, you had to put it on the thing.
The kind of altar sort of thing. But yeah, it was the clue for this one, it was more music related. And so you had to go and find a bunch of clues in this particular Rush album. And now, was that the gate, or was just that just how to open the gate? I can't remember now. Gosh, I just finished this like a couple days ago.
I did. I just finished it yesterday. At any rate, you had to put the guitar, but Wade is the only one who tried to play it, and it tells him that basically it tells him that it's going to take more than one person to open the final gate.
Right.
And he's like, I have an advantage now because, nobody else probably thought of trying to play the guitar before they carried it in there and stuck it on this thing.
So there's a lot of things, and I don't, because like I said, the rest of this it really goes by pretty quickly, and I don't necessarily want to give away much about the ending. Except I will say it's not an unexpected ending. Would you agree?
Not completely. There was a small thing that I didn't really expect.
But I mean, there's a couple things that you don't expect. But I mean, like the overall ending of the story. I mean, it wasn't that unexpected, but just the way that you got there was really interesting. And because I don't want to really go into too much about the crystal key and the crystal gate. But let's just say that to sum up the ending without giving away too many spoilers, Wade does end up getting captured by the IOI, but is able to use it to his advantage. And he gets to finally meet other people, the other high five in person. And somebody very, very important becomes a very, very big ally.
Yes. Which I thought was like the coolest thing
That was
ever.
pretty awesome. So basically, for me, I'm just going to say this book was one of the more original books that I had read in a long time.
It really is. It takes concepts that are going to be familiar to a lot of people, and it makes them into something original and very entertaining. I mean, I really, really, really dug this book. I mean, I'm going to have to get a copy in Dead Tree format.
I don't know why I think it's so funny that you refer to it that way.
Well,
I know. I mean,
I stole it from Savannah on the tavern.
I know. It's funny.
But I definitely need this one in Dead Tree version so it can sit on my shelf.
Well, because the thing is, I mean, like you can see how serious this is. I mean, it's a high stakes contest where everybody in the world can enter and everybody in the world has a chance to win it. And there's a lot of people who are very, very determined to win it and are willing to do anything to do so. And you have all this serious stuff. You have a major, major planetary issues with the way that people are barely able to survive. And yet there's still the other thing is this, it's such a serious story, but at the same time it's so funny. I mean, just like these.
Oh yeah, I love it was actually the passage you used on your blog about watching YouTube videos of geeky girls playing the ukulele.
Yes. I mean, that
cracked me up.
There's a ton of stuff like that. It's very snarky and in the best way. Now let me find that quote because I might have read this quote when we had our quotes time because it was really funny. Like I said, he's spent a lot of time watching movies and TV shows and playing video games, doing all this research to figure out ways to solve the clues and stuff. So one of the things when he's talking about this, Wade says, I watched a lot of YouTube videos of cute geeky girls playing 80s cover tunes on ukuleles. Technically this wasn't part of my research, but I had a serious cute geeky girls playing ukuleles fetish that I could neither explain nor defend.
Yeah, I love that.
I mean, Wade is just he's a really likable character. And he's your plucky underdog that wants to prove to the world that he's able to do this. And you can't help but root for the guy. I mean, he's the kind of, I mean, he's definitely not perfect. He's got some issues, and, if you lived his life, you'd probably have issues too. But you can't help but just cheer him along because he's the kind of every person. You can easily see doing the same things that he would do if you were in that situation. And he's just funny. I mean, he's snarky and sarcastic and just has that like wicked little sense of humor that he kind of uses to help deal with all of the crazy bad things that are going on. And I always like that.
Yeah, I do too. We have had this discussion about my deep, abiding love of Snark.
Snark's good stuff.
It really is.
So yeah, our final word, we really like this book. Well, I already knew that, but I'm glad that you liked it too. I thought you would.
Yes, I did. I did.
So we recommend it. So everybody, go check out this book. They have it in just about every format you can think of. I actually have it in, well, as you call it, Dead Tree version and Kindle version. Just because I have a couple books like that now, where I want both of them so I can have it one very portable and one that sits on the bookshelf.
See, my thing is, I desperately want a Kindle, but most of the things I want in Kindle format are stuff that I keep reading over and over and wearing out.
Right.
Because I can't really read a Kindle book until it falls apart.
That's true.
I might be able to read it until my Kindle falls apart. But I mean, when you've read through 3 copies of Pawn of Prophecy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I want, like, the Belgariad as ebooks, because while I love my Dead Tree versions, I'm tired of having to replace them. But yeah, this is one I mean, and I love my actual physical books. I love them. And I want to hug them and sniff them and keep them forever. So, yeah, this is one I definitely need to find in actual physical form. This is just begging for a trip to McKay.
So, we're going to wrap it up tonight. But, yes, go check this book out. Because it's awesome.
Yes, read it.
It's fun.
Read
it's
it.
Adventurous. Now. It's awesome. So,
immediately.
Yes. So, if you would like to contact us and let us know if you've read this book and what you thought, we would love to hear from you. You can email us, bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter, and go ahead and follow us on Twitter. You will hear about the latest episodes, the latest book reviews that we have up. So we are at Bib Anon Podcast, so follow us there. And you can always leave comments over at our website, www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com.
Yep.
So I think that's it.
Yep, I think that'll do it until next week.
Okay, so next week, be sure to join us next week because both of us get to jump up on our soapbox. It's going to have to be a big soapbox because both of us are going to be up there.
Yep.
We are celebrating the American Library Association's Banned Books Week. So come and celebrate that with us, and we will have a lot to say on the topic, I assure you.
When do we not have a lot to say on any topic?
Well, that's true. But we are very excitable about the whole banned books thing, so it always turns out entertaining.
We have a censorship soapbox.
We do, and it's a fairly big soapbox, so we should both fit. Anyway, so we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.